This will work. We'll do a PB here. Just the three of us. Security's gonna be an issue, but we'll make it work.
No problem, man. Whatever you say, big boss.
Oh, here we go. Always the joke. Big boss. You gonna take that? What's this? That Nessa story? No, it's a Metal Gear Solid reference. He's gonna be doing this all day. Well, I played 3 sports in high school and married the prom queen, so good luck with all that nerd stuff.
Yeah, well, I'll take things that used to be cool but aren't actually relevant today for 300 Alex.
Okay, but seriously, we're gonna have to make the best of the situation. This is our spot. 360 security as best as we possibly can.
Okay, well, Josh can take 160, I can take 160. Bliskin, you can take 40. How about that?
All right, seriously, we're gonna keep it light, keep it fast. Just set up a poncho or a shelter. Just set up a poncho. We're not setting up a bed and breakfast here, okay?
Don't worry, dude. If we see any red flags, we'll let you know, Dan Crenshaw.
Okay, that's insulting. Just go dig a slit trench. Make yourself useful in some way.
All right. Hey, when Scott Summers gives you an order, you just follow it. No, but seriously, if something does happen, I'll just radio you guys, all right? Sound good, old friend?
Dude, I don't get it. Is that another solid gear metal thing?
The dude's a walking contradiction. He spent his entire childhood either alone in his bedroom playing video games or alone in the woods by himself. He's not used to being around people. We just gotta put up.
Hey, Otacon, I was just thinking, if it starts raining, that cardboard box for your shelter is probably not gonna hold up. Just letting you know. All right, out.
How is he doing this?
I have no idea, nor do I even care at this point. Let's just keep going.
How do you create the most secure and defendable campsite in the world? That's what we're going to be talking about today. You see, militaries all around the world have been trying to figure out the answer to this question for centuries. And today they've come up with a pretty good formula, and it is called the patrol base. Now, as soon as we throw out a military term or military doctrine, I know we all have nightmares of like walking through a 10-hour-long PowerPoint presentation just to communicate something that should be common sense to most people, or we think of some bone-dry field manual. So today, we're not gonna go through all of the like little intricacies, but what we are gonna do is explain it in the most guerrilla, unconventional style imaginable, as if you didn't have a huge element or a huge group of baddies backing you, but instead just a couple of buddies, prepared citizens, prepared civilians, to have your back in the field. That's what we're getting into. How to do a civilian patrol base. Now, we're also gonna show how this 3-man setup can scale up to 6, and also how it scales up to 30 or 50. But the person probably best able to talk about this stuff is our buddy Jonathan, who has spent many a times setting up PBs in weird areas of the world. And so let's just kick it over to him for the actual hardcore definition of a patrol base. And yes, he is actually missing an eye. You know, you can leave it in the comments as to how you think it happened. Maybe it was a horrible lawnmower accident, or maybe, you know, he got into a fist fight with a stick in the woods. Guess we'll have to find out.
It's actually neither of those things. But what is a patrol base? All a patrol base is a position that you're gonna take a short halt during a patrol to get some rest, do maintenance in your weapons, and get reset, ready for the next thing. Keep in mind that a patrol base is always done in a contested area. It's not something you typically conduct behind friendly lines. So 2 things are gonna be top of mind throughout. And the first is security is mandatory. It's not optional. And secondly, you're not digging in a fighting position. Your concealment is going to be your main form of security when it comes to dealing with people trying to find you.
Guys, before we move on, we have to take a moment and thank the sponsors that make this content free for you on YouTube. First and foremost is Wetworks. Now, when you start going out onto not flat range events with the boys, but camping, patrolling, and long distance kind of movements, you start to realize I need to carry a couple more things with me beyond just 3 mags on my chest rig and maybe a rangefinder. No, I need to be able to have water, my night vision, thermal, batteries, multi-tool, cleaning equipment, water purification systems, gloves, on and on and on. And having a system that can comfortably carry it, as well as layer up or down, whether you're doing body armor or you have bigger puffy jackets depending on the weather, that chest rig system needs to be able to function well for you. And this Wetworks split rig has given me the ability to be versatile depending on what it is that I'm doing. So go check out Wetworks. Next, if you are doing some form of patrolling or long range mobility, having a mapping system is crucial. And Onyx Off-Road gives you those capabilities, even if you're just still trying to learn how to do it with a map and compass. Having a GPS system where you can open up your iPhone with pre-downloaded maps and check out what's going on in your surrounding areas, as well as with a shading effect or where water is, that is crucial. And it is nice to have that satellite style backup. Finally, guys, you all know that thermal is starting to become not just a luxury to have out in the woods or out on a patrol, it is starting to be mandatory. So this DNT thermal optic comes in at a very aggressive price point. We're talking $1,000. Now the Hydra offers us a clip-on capability. It could also be used as just a handheld standalone. It doesn't have to be attached to the rifle. They also have different options that do IR and thermal and vis, as well as having laser rangefinder capabilities. So if you're looking for a good thermal at an entry-level price point that gives you a lot of options, go check out DNT. Links for all these companies are in the description. Let's get back to the video.
Doctrinally and by military standards, you typically would not even try to conduct a patrol base with less than 12 guys. Typically 12 is the minimum, and then you're hopefully having between 20 and 50. But in a civilian context, we know that it's extremely rare to have that many people available. So what we're going to talk about today is how we achieve those same objectives, apply those same principles, but apply it to a group of 3 to 4 guys, something a little bit more realistic for the prepared civilian. Again, doctrinally in the military, there is a long list of priorities of work that need to occur inside of a patrol base. Some of those, especially when you're scaling down to just a couple of guys, some of those are should do's and maybe could do's, and then there's a couple of must do's, things that you absolutely cannot sacrifice on, those being security, water, and maintenance. So let's start off with security.
So being that we are trying to mimic the military doctrinal system, which has been, again, proven over time, we are going to want to maintain all 360 degrees of security. This means human eyeballs as well as fighting equipment oriented all around us in order to view and observe everything at all times. Now, this actually can be done with 3 dudes, but it's going to be fairly difficult. Now, traditionally, when this is done, regardless how many guys you have, a triangle formation is a very strong defensive formation. And yes, that can be done with 3 dudes. The downside is everyone is actually going to be responsible for 120 degrees of viewing space. And if you have, let's see, 5 eyeballs, because Fisher lost one, it's going to be even harder. Okay, now you have 3 guys, but the orientation of the tools, again, at a doctrinal level, is very selective. You're emplacing machine guns and grenadiers and designated marksmen and radiomen in certain locations in order to provide that security. But boiling it back down to just 3 civilians, how is this being done? Well, you're probably going to have to be selective as to where the specific tools are being emplaced. Let's just say notionally over in this direction, we have our water, and we're really concerned about other people coming down to get more water. There's a road over here. Well, we're then going to be selective as to where the tools are being emplaced in orientation of our concern of threat level. See, you're not just landing people wherever they want to go as they fall in. You're choosing the specific tools. You're choosing the specific tools to land in a defensive location. Think about it like a big tower defense game where a bunch of dudes are coming in, they're trying to take the tower, and you're emplacing the sticky cannon, the machine gun, the grenade launcher in those locations. Now, if someone has to step offline in order to get some sleep, to eat, or to change out the battery in their night vision, you're not just pulling that person and their equipment offline. You may be leaving the thermal and the full auto or force reset system at that location while someone else is sleeping. You're going to have to get selfless with the tools that you have in order to actually maintain security. But this also brings up another point, which is sleep.
All right, so sleep and rest. This is something that is very crucial when you're in the field. I'm probably the last person that should be talking about this, considering my typical sleep habits. But without it, even a day or 2 without it, you're gonna start to run into serious problems. You're gonna start making poor decisions. You're gonna feel awful. I mean, you may even start hallucinating. Like you may be trying to sleep at night and just all of a sudden Psycho Mantis just coalesces out of the ether of the air and you have to plug in a second controller in order to fight him without all the controls being backwards.
What's he?
It's another Metal Gear Solid reference. I don't think it's gonna stop.
Carry on.
What? So how do you maintain security and get sleep at the same time with only 3 guys? Well, it's very difficult. You're probably looking at 2-hour sleep windows for each guy before you swap out. And that's mainly because, especially at night, if you're trying to stay awake and alert for 2 hours at a time, that's about kind of when you hit your max in terms of peak effectiveness. After that, you start drifting, you start getting bored, your standards kind of start to lower, right? And so we always want to have fresh eyes. So if I'm wearing night vision and I'm on a 2-hour security rotation in the middle of the night and I'm the only dude with nods, whenever it's time to swap out, I'm actually going to be giving my nods to the next guy and then going and getting some shut-eye. But hold on to your hats because we're not done yet, or your eye patch if you're Jonathan and you lost your eye doing something stupid, because just one guy pulling security at night is not enough. You still need to have 2, and instead of each guy having 120 degrees field of view coverage, you're gonna be looking at 2 guys covering 180. It's not ideal, but it is very doable. And just by the military standards, 1 guy would never be expected to cover 180 degrees of coverage for the whole team. Now, with that being said, there are things that as a 3-man group we can do to kind of make this job easier for us. Let's say there's only 2 of us on pulling security. We each have 180 degrees to cover. Well, that's still a hard task, so that's where early warning systems and early warning detectors come into play. We've done a whole video on this that you guys can check out. There's a lot of things that you can make in the field or prepare ahead of time and bring in to kind of lock off some certain areas so that you don't have to visually be aware of them all the time. You can hear things. You can pull brush in the area around what you're trying to cover in order to funnel guys into a certain pathway, because especially at night, as people are moving, if you're worried about someone coming up on you, people are gonna naturally take the path of least resistance. So you can kind of funnel them into zones that you have good eyes on. You can also use tripwires and alarms like sound detection stuff. And we've laid all of that out in that video, so you should definitely check that out and get creative with how you lock down zones and try and move people into certain areas to maximize the effectiveness of just 2 guys having to cover an entire area. Now, setting up early detection systems is going to take time, and when you're working with limited manpower, you need to know that every little thing that you do like that comes at the cost of something else. It comes at the cost of setting up a really good water filtration site, or it comes at the cost of digging out a slit trench, to take care of yourself at night, which is really hard if you only have 1 eye.
Got your ass.
So consider these things when you're thinking about how much time it's going to have to take to set this stuff up. Maybe you're not waiting until the sun is going down to establish a PB. Maybe you're doing it in the middle of the afternoon or early afternoon or even late morning for that matter. And then finally agreeing upon a rendezvous point. So if we have to pack up camp in the middle of the night, super fast, super hasty, we all kind of know where we're going to go next. Even if it's not on mission, we have an auxiliary location that if XYZ happens, we're packing up and we're moving out to.
All right, water. One of those needs that you can't deny or delay for too long, or else you're going to turn into a human raisin. Water is king is a saying for a reason, because without it, in a very short order of time, you will be ineffective as an alive human being. So with a 3-man element going into a patrol base, one of the things that you're going to want to do before you get to the patrol base is collect your water. Since we just talked about security, one of the things you don't want to do is leave your patrol base to go get water and then come back to your patrol base, which could expose your position. So collecting water on the way to your patrol base is probably going to be the best move, if at all possible. Second thing that you're going to want to do is delegate a water boss. This is going to be the guy who's in charge of your water purification system and making sure that the entire team has clean water. There's a reason for designating someone to do this as opposed to having everyone do their own water. If everyone's cleaning their own water in their own method, there's a much higher likelihood that someone's going to fail at cleaning water and someone's going to get sick. And with just 3 guys, you cannot afford to have someone sick. So having someone who's squared away and understands water purification is going to be key. And the key is going to be applying what I like to call the 3 C's of water cleaning. That is going to be consistency in your process, control over your process, and clarity when it comes to labeling your water and what's clean and what's not. Another added benefit of having a water boss, on top of having the consistency in the process, is that it's both more efficient with time and efficient with equipment. So instead of everyone having to carry a multi-bag system with them, you can have a guy on your 3-man team who has that, and that leaves up room for other guys to carry other things. Also, when it comes back to security, if you have everybody trying to clean water, they're wasting time where they could be sleeping or pulling security, cleaning water. So just having one guy do it for everybody is by far the safest and most efficient method. So while this video isn't a full breakdown on a complete water purification system, I think there are some highlight points that we need to hit. Efficiency is going to be key, as well as safety. And this is one of those areas that if you can avoid using primitive methods to clean your water, then you should absolutely do so. So when it comes to systems like gravity bags, or for example, like the H2Go, I take this with me absolutely wherever I go. One of the things that you learn if you spend some time at Darcy is the importance of not only having a consistent and clear process, but having efficient processes. And tools like this allow you to do that. So this can scale from my 3-man team all the way up to a 30-man team doing multiple jerry cans with the same tool. And yes, does it cost some money? Of course. But you're paying for efficiency, which is going to mean more time sleeping in the field, and it's going to mean resting assured that you're not poisoning your team. Tools like this are going to help keep you and your guys safe. And if you happen to maybe wash your face with dirty water and a strange bacteria gets into your eye and eats it from the inside out, maybe that won't happen to you. As we scale up from 3 to 6 to 30 guys, we'll go over some examples of how we apply these principles up to those. But since we now have taken care of security and we've taken care of water, we're going to take care of the next most important thing, which is going to be our equipment.
Hey Fisher, keep an eye on the water while I talk about maintenance. All right guys, so equipment maintenance for civilians. You have to remember that we do not have a multi-billion-dollar government system ready to replace our night vision or our bulk carrier group when something goes down. So making sure that you take time to touch all of your equipment and care for it is crucially important. If this is life-saving equipment that is sustaining you and keeping you alive, you can't let it fail. You have to take care of it. Now, this is not the time and place to take your bulk carrier group all the way apart and lose your cam pin. There's actually a term for this. The term is field stripping your rifle. This is not a good moment to look at your buddy's helmet and ear pro and realize, the way that he's got his ears mounted look a lot more comfortable. In the middle of the night or while everyone else is pulling security, I'm gonna take a little bit of time and I'm gonna completely take my helmet apart, lose screws, all that kind of stuff. This is just simple maintenance. Things like, maybe I did shoot a couple of rounds and I'm going to reorient my mags to make sure that I'm topped off in the best way possible. I'm gonna pull my bolt out, wipe it down quickly, throw some lube back on there, make sure that everything's tight, the suppressor's where I want it, batteries go back in my radio and nods, and I'm good to go. Now, going back to the point that we're already limited on manpower and everyone is eager to get some sleep and some food, you're probably gonna only be given 2 hours in order to maintain your equipment, eat, and then get some sleep. So how fast and efficient you can do this, also probably in the dark, is 100% on you. If you're only getting 30 minutes of sleep because you used a lot of time to eat and clean your stuff, sorry man, that's on you. The other guys are gonna be tired and they're losing the ability to be as observant while they are on security protecting you. Now, obviously this also really highlights the necessity for having a compact and mobile cleaning kit as opposed to, yeah, I got a whole garage that I can use in order to clean my rifle. No, can you do this just out of a hip pocket or a backpack? We did a whole video explaining what I carry for a rifle cleaning kit that can also be applied to Glocks or any of your other gear. Really, really wish Drew would actually watch that video because he seems to always be using mine. And you know, who knows? Maybe you're taking something apart the wrong way because you don't have the right tool, a spring goes flying, and you lose your eye. Could be terrible. Now with that, obviously understanding your way around a rifle as well as your cleaning kit goes a really long way. If you can quickly clean something in the dark, it's gonna make you and your whole team more efficient. Talking about efficiency and security, we also have to address another point, which is a stand to order.
So historically, stand 2 has always been conducted on either side of what's called nautical twilight, which is where the sun is either rising in the sky or it's setting behind the horizon. This is the time that, all throughout history actually, has been the most likely time to be attacked. And this is for a couple of reasons. Back in the day, it was because the sun coming down blinded your enemies. And actually the same thing occurs today. Whether you're talking about night vision or you're talking about thermals, that shift in lighting and that shift in thermal temperature degrades the effectiveness of these kinds of tools. So at those times, everyone goes on 100% security, and much like what we'll talk about when we come into the patrol base, doing a stop, look, listen, and smell, it is a time that the entire patrol base is alert and is observing the surroundings. Because most likely you're probably gonna leave your patrol base soon. So getting a good security check on your area with a stand 2 is always a good call. Now, if this sounds miserable, it's because it is miserable. Doing a patrol base operations with just 3 guys, it's just not biologically sustainable. After a certain amount of time, the lack of sleep, getting 2 hours of sleep at a time at best, you're simply gonna crash out after just a couple of days. So what's crazy is how much things change when you go from 3 guys to 6 guys when it comes to our priorities like security, water, and maintenance. All right, so we talked about maintenance, we talked about water with 6 men. Let's talk about sleep. So we had to come inside of the whiteboard for this because when you get up to 6 people, this is gonna go across a lot of different factors, but organization and leadership are gonna start becoming a really key factor. Just managing between 3 guys is pretty easy to be like, hey, we're gonna do this. Okay, me and him are gonna go do this. That's simple. When you have 6 guys, you need to start getting more organized. So we're gonna start off talking about the sleep schedule and the schedule within the patrol base. So let's say in this hypothetical situation, we're gonna start with collecting water at 7, let's say in this example, 7 o'clock in the evening. So by 7:30, we're in our patrol base and we are starting to work on our dirty water. In the meantime, when we take a look at our patrol base over here, as far as security goes, with organization, with 6 men, all you're gaining on security with having more men is a constant 360-degree security with your guys at each corner of the patrol base, whether that's a triangle or another shape, and it's allowing your other 3 guys in the middle to do other admin tasks, all right? So one of those is gonna be water. So our water guy in the middle, he starts at about 7:30. That's gonna take some time. So while he's doing that, we can split the group into a couple different ways. You can either split up into groups of 2, like 3 teams of 2, or just 2 teams of 3, however you best wanna work it. But allowing the time for each group to eat and maintain their equipment. And we're talking 30 minutes here. This goes into another point, actually, as we're talking about the water still being purified, is that when you're packing out for a patrol, if you're packing meals that require clean water, like a Mountain House meal, in order to prepare the meal, you may not have time to do that, or the water may not be clean in time for you to do that. So just think back to how you're packing, an MRE, something that's completely self-contained, that you can eat quickly without clean water. This is where those little decisions and those little choices start to make a big impact, whether or not maybe you get to eat or not. So it all comes back down to the fundamentals and the basics here. We have a 30-minute time slot for each team to eat and do their equipment. And then once that's completed, our water, it should be purified by about 9. So everyone can top off on water, and then it's time to get into a guard rotation. With a 6-man guard rotation, you can do it basically there's 2 ways you can do it. Where you can have guys get multiple small blocks of sleep, or you can try to get a large block of sleep each. So let's say if we split into teams of 3 guys on security on the outside, and then you got 3 guys sleeping on the inside, we can do a rotation where they each get 4 consecutive hours of sleep, which is definitely going to be advantageous when it comes to actually getting good rest. 2 2-hour blocks of sleep, or an hour and a half here and 3 hours there, you don't get as much rest as you do if you get consistent sleep. That being said, you have to make that call, because if your guys are completely exhausted and they're barely standing as it is, you can't expect them to stay on guard for 4 hours straight. So again, you're gonna have to make that call, but the most important thing is that you organize your schedule so it's fair, so everyone is taken care of, and then this schedule is communicated to the entire team. I just want to reiterate this point that strong leadership is essential when you get into a group this size. The good idea fairy, the decisions by committee, those end up being completely disorganized. You end up getting very little accomplished. People start having issues with each other. You just need to have a strong leader who's in charge, who's making these decisions, and then everyone else needs to get on board and just do what they say. It's not always an easy thing to do. This isn't a video about interpersonal dynamics, but if you are unfamiliar with working with other people, you should probably get used to that, because working with other people is the key to making any of this work. So on the topic of organization within the patrol base, talking about sleep and talking about security, I want to talk about hot swapping. And what is hot swapping? Essentially what it is since you have your 3 guys out here on security and you have 3 guys in the middle, instead of setting up 6 different sleep setups with 6 different ponchos and 6 different mats all over the place, if you just set up 3 and then you swap out of those sleeping positions, this minimizes the amount, a couple of things. It minimizes your footprint in the patrol base, the amount of stuff that you have to clean up. It can speed up the time that you're able to pack and leave if you need to leave in a hurry. And it minimizes the amount of stuff that each individual needs to carry. Actually, when looking at this and all the patrol bases sleeping, Spirit of Systems did a really good series on patrol basics. And that's one thing that they cover as well in their video, is the topic of hot swapping and minimizing the equipment that you need to carry with you. For example, if it's pouring down rain, you may need to use your poncho to cover your expensive thermal and your FRT gun to keep it from getting rusted and minimize maintenance in the future. Well, now you don't have a poncho to sleep under. But if you're hot swapping a poncho with someone else, now you're covered. Now your weapon's covered and taken care of, and so are you. One thing that is not usually discussed, but you may have some questions about, is how do you wake up for your guard shift? And there's the best way to possibly do it is to have an alarm, preferably on your watch, like a vibrating alarm that's very quiet, that doesn't make any noise, that you can wake up when it's time for your guard shift. In the case that that does not happen, the person who is in the least dangerous position on guard can get up and go rouse up the next group of guys to do guard shift. It really comes down to having the right tools, an alarm, and having the discipline to get up. You'd be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised about how hard it is sometimes to wake someone up from security. But at the end of the day, people need to get their rest and swap out, so it's a mandatory task.
All right, back to security. Now with 6 guys, we are seriously bolstering our ability to observe and defend our space. Now, with 6 guys, we also need to ensure that everyone is communicating their sectors of fire. So I'm able to see from here to there, and then the next guy on my right is going to overlap on his left all the way around the triangle. Additionally, we can then get more equipment taken care of. More people are eating and more people are sleeping, of course, because we can still have 360 security while 3 guys are also sleeping. So our team is getting better rest. Our equipment is being taken care of in a faster manner. And yes, we need to take care of getting everyone more water, but you have the manpower to do it as well. So immediately the security is able to stay up at 100%, 360 security all the way around our campsite, while half the team is also able to rest or maintain their gear.
As we get into water for a 6-man team, collection of the water is actually going to stay the same as it was on a 3-man team. With 6 guys, once you get established in your patrol base, if you split the team in half in order to send off a water party to go collect water, essentially you end up with 2 weak teams that can't really defend themselves effectively. You also may compromise your patrol base location by having dudes leave and then come back to the patrol base. So just like with 3 guys, try to get your water on your way to the patrol base. How much water are you cleaning for 6 guys? Now, you're normally going to want each guy to have at least 2 fresh Nalgene's of water for basically half a day. So that's about 3 gallons of water. So we're going to have to upscale the volume of water that we're cleaning and the volume of the containers that we're bringing with us. So this is where stuff like jerry cans already start coming into play with just 6 guys. So with that increased volume and with an increased responsibility for taking care of more people's health and hygiene when it comes to clean water, those 3 C's that we talked about earlier, the consistent process, the control over the process, and the clarity in which you label things becomes even more important. All right, so as this process scales and becomes more complex, I'll walk you through a basic water purification setup for a 6-man squad. First, we're going to start off with our dirty water container, which we're going to want to make sure that we're labeling as dirty water. So I'm doing that with just black tape in this example. We know that's our dirty water. As we move up, we'll move into our filtration. Hopefully, we actually pre-filtered that water at the water source. But even if we weren't able to, we're now moving into a filtration system, which is then moving from the filtration and the clean bag into our purification down here. What's very important once we get to the purification stand, especially when you have 6 guys, is going to be labeling that can appropriately. So like this one has a clean label on it. The entire group needs to know very clearly which canister is the clean water to refill their Nalgene's from. A simple mix-up of someone grabbing the wrong jerry can in the dark is the difference between you being successful and then you carrying someone while they die from dysentery, like on the Oregon Trail. You've died of dysentery. With that increased process and making sure we're maintaining control over it, there's a couple of things that brings up. One is the time that it takes to do this. So you have the lag time of the actual purification method itself. So in 60 degree and above weather, that's a minimum of 30 minutes for example, the H2Go. If it gets colder, that time increases. With that additional complexity comes the issue of having a bunch of cooks in the kitchen. If you have all 6 dudes trying to chime in and do their water purification method, or I want to try this little thing that I got on Amazon, you can see how this becomes extremely complex and is even more of an issue when everybody's sleep deprived and tired and has been walking all day. So again, that is why those 3 C's become even more important the more people that you have. And this exponentially becomes more of an issue once we move up to 30 people, which we'll show later. Since this process is going to take some time for the purification method and just like setting up your water station, let's look at some things that guys can be doing with that time while we wait for the water to purify. And those things are going to be things like eating, sleeping, and maintenance.
So while the water guy's taking care of some of his tasks, we have to remember that we still have 3 guys pulling security, which gives 2 other guys the freedom to be able to maintenance their equipment, eat, and it opens up the timeline for us to be able to do some mission planning or exterior projects beyond just cleaning your rifle. As an example, let's say you have a drone operator, maybe you have a dog guy, you could have a breacher, a navigating man. There's a long list of things that could be done in order to prepare for what's coming up tomorrow or later tonight before you go back out on patrol. So let's give, in theory, everyone an hour in order to eat, maintenance their equipment, and then look at the map or change the batteries in their radio or their drones. Whatever those list of tools are, you now have a little bit more time to tackle that equipment. Somewhere along those lines, the water guy is going to be done, everything's going to be pure, and he's going to be dishing that out to everyone, whether they're on security or not. But there's a crucial thing to remember here when guys are actually eating. This is something that also comes off of doctrinal lessons learned, which is if someone is on security and another guy is eating, you have to remove the guy who is eating from the line of security. You got to remember, let's picture you've been walking for 12 hours straight, you're hungry, you're tired, you're thirsty, and your boy over here is finally warming up an MRE. Are you thinking that you're actually going to be able to pay attention to what's going on? Are you going to be checking out his, I don't know, chili mac or the Skittles that he's downing? Dude, you're absolutely going to be wanting to strike up a conversation. You're going to be trying to eyeball and figure out, I only got 2 more bites. My turn to eat is probably coming up. You need to segregate the guys who are getting downtime 1 to 3 meters at least. Pull them inside of the patrol base and let them have their time to relax. And then when you swap them out, the guys that are on security are 100% focused on security.
So just like we designate guys to handle water or we designate guys to pull security for a rotation, it's also a good idea to designate someone as soon as you get to your PB and establish it to dig a slit trench or a latrine of some sort. And the reason for this is pretty simple. I know you've all been on camping trips where, in some random time or some random hour, sometimes in the middle of the night, someone's like, oh, I gotta go take a crap, like I gotta go, and you just kind of like wander off somewhere. Well, when it comes to having a secure and defendable campsite or PB, you can't just have dudes wandering off, especially, you know, maybe they get out there and everything's fine, but them coming back in, it's like, okay, who's emerging from the darkness, you know, with an aura of stink around them. So being that I am probably the guy who's taking more dumps than anybody else out in the field, and not by choice, I typically have this duty. And so whenever we do this, I try and find a place, it's gotta be within the PB, but not close to where we have guys sleeping or where we have guys eating. The more people you have, the larger your PB is, so it's easier to actually find a place that's, you know, great for taking a dump. Like this place right here is actually not bad. Like, check this out. I've got this like soft moss, man. Yeah, although I don't want to be, you know, going skin on skin where someone else has been sitting, but you know, if I had to, it's not gonna hurt me. It's not gonna poke me or anything. It's nice and soft. I can grab onto this. I can lean over, you know, make sure everything's hanging out the right end and just let her rip. And then as an added bonus, I just leave my e-tool here. Cleaning it off. When it's time to pack up and roll out, it's not fun. Everyone is gonna know where you're at all times just because of the stink of your shovel, but this is an important task to take care of. So yeah, just ensuring that there is one place that people are going to use the bathroom, and so there's not just like piles of dump everywhere, and so that people aren't wandering off in weird places is the play. The last thing you want is for in the middle of the night for some dude to just take a dump right beside you. You wake up the next morning, you have pink eye, it leads to an infection, and before you know it, you've lost that eye, and then you have to be on film the next day.
So speaking of not forgetting your poop shovel, let's talk about leaving and leaving the patrol base and what you need to do as a 6-man team before you do that. So the main thing that we're going to look at, especially with more people, is making sure that everyone is resupplied and that we've cross-loaded all of our necessary supplies. So whether that's ammunition, especially water, making sure everyone's topped off on water before we step off. It's going to be crucially important. It's very easy to lose track of people and what they have and don't have. And if someone's not speaking up, all of a sudden you're 6 hours into the next patrol and, you know, Drew fell out because he had diarrhea all night and didn't drink any water. To wrap up resupply and reorganization, you just want to make sure you keep an eye on all your guys' stuff and on their water. And before you step off, you're going to do what's called PCCs and PCIs, which is your pre-combat checks and pre-combat inspections. We talked about this briefly in our acronyms video, but essentially all it is you're getting hands and an eye on all of your guys' equipment before they step off. So physically touching their magazines, touch their night vision, make sure all the stuff is still attached to their rifle. Once you leave a patrol base, you really don't ever want to go back to that same location. So making sure everything is set before you step off is a crucial step to making sure that you exit your patrol base cleanly with all of your stuff and leaving no trace that you were there in the first place. We are back in the shop to talk a little bit more about the doctrinal way that the Army does a patrol base with a full platoon size element. Now, a lot of these concepts are going to carry over into 6 and 3-man patrol bases, and so we will make a point to point out where those areas are. But just for your understanding and understanding where all of these principles came from, let's go through how the Army does it first. The first thing that a patrol leader is going to do is site selection, and that's actually going to occur before he ever steps off on the patrol. This is done through a map reconnaissance, which is taking the map of the area that you're going to, identifying key terrain features, and giving your best guess as to where you think a good patrol base might be. All this does is it takes some of the guesswork out. If you know generally where you can be, it lowers the chance of you picking a bad spot for a patrol base. So they'll do this on a map first, but then once they're there physically in person, it becomes time to do the approach and the reconnaissance of the patrol base. So before I draw this out, let's talk about what the criteria are for a good patrol base. And this applies, some of this applies to the 3 and 6 man as well. There's a running joke in the Army that there are so many requirements for a patrol base that there is actually not a good place for a patrol base on planet Earth. It needs to be near water. It needs to be not close to water because that attracts people. It needs to be in the low ground. It needs to not be in a place that gets flooded. It's a running joke but what it all boils down to are 3 main criteria that you have to hit, which is somewhere near a source of water so you can resupply your men. It needs to have no tactical or little tactical value to the enemy, and you need to have good communications. To get into each of those really briefly, having no tactical value to the enemy might seem a little jargony. All that means is that your patrol base is not in a spot that the enemy is going to frequent or they would want to go. General rule of thumb when selecting based on this principle is that if you don't want to go there, it's probably a good spot for a patrol base. So think a thicket, lots of thorns, not a hospitable place, not near any natural lines of drift, roads, or valuable assets. As far as being close to water, it needs to be for a 30-man patrol base. You want to have your patrol base in a place where you can send out a water party to go get water. So it can be close-ish to water, but not literally on top of it. For a 3 and 6 man, like we talked about out in the field, you're going to want to do that water before you get that water collection before you get to your patrol base. So that part doesn't quite apply over. And the same thing goes with communications. Now, in the military, once you get to a patrol base, it is essential that you establish communications with your higher command, because you may be receiving what's called fragmentation orders, sending you on a completely different mission than your original patrol. In a civilian context, this can mean in a disaster relief scenario, getting good communications with your base, with the dispatch who's sending you out. In a more austere or contested environment, you may not want to have comms. You may be trying to stay off of radar. You may want to use like a silent Faraday bag to put your radios and stuff in to keep your signals from being seen. So again, context applies, but if you do need to have communications, whether that's with your base or with your wife who is going to worry about you, make sure you have comms when you set up your patrol base. So now we understand the criteria of this site that we're going to select. So let's draw this out on the whiteboard as if we're on a patrol and we're getting close to the spot that we think we're going to have a patrol base. So as the patrol comes to about 200 to 400 meters away from the potential patrol base, this is going to depend on visibility factors. The platoon is going to make a short halt and they are going to take up a cigar-shaped formation. And all this is doing is allowing all of your men to face out, to have 360-degree security, but collapse back into a column or a file or whatever other formation you need to get into to start moving quickly. You're going to have a leader's recon, which is going to consist of your patrol leader, probably the assistant, an RTO, a radio guy, as well as many bodies as you can spare. Typically, it's like 6 to 9 people will go out on this leader's reconnaissance. They will move out as a group and establish an observation post. The purpose of the observation post is to provide rear security for the leader's reconnaissance and also to observe and report on the area that they're in. It's like a fallback point for the leader's recon and a waypoint for when the rest of the patrol moves up later. The leader's recon will then make a 90-degree turn, and this is to discourage anyone from following behind them, and start entering the patrol base. And where they enter the patrol base from will become the patrol base's 6 o'clock. They will then move through the patrol base. There's a couple different ways to do it we'll go over, but essentially they're going to make a triangle up to the 10 o'clock, over to the 2 o'clock, and back down to the 6 o'clock, making sure the entire time that they're just checking out the patrol base's viability, right? As the patrol leaders are making this leader's reconnaissance of the patrol base, they're keeping their eye out for 5 key factors. That's going to be observation in the fields of fire, cover and concealment, obstacles, key terrain features, and avenues of approach. Those are the criteria that they're looking for. If all those are checked off and they're getting a good radio check, then this is a good patrol base. As they're moving around, they are leaving people at each corner to maintain security of the patrol base so that we can move into the next phase, which is occupying the patrol base. All right, as we wrap up talking about the approach and move into occupy, I do want to touch on how this changes for 3-man and 6-man. There is another way to occupy a patrol base, and it's actually commonly used in the military. As opposed to doing this entire formation, the entire formation will occupy and force is what's called. And this is what's done in the military context when you're very short on time and you don't have time to set up an OP and do a leader's recon and get a radio check. The entire patrol just moves into the patrol base. And that's the method we're going to use with 3 to 6 guys. So once you've established where you think you want your patrol base, essentially, if you have 3 guys, you can all get on a line together and move up into the patrol base together in force. Since you only have 3 guys, if you get into an engagement, you want to make sure that you're all together to maximize your firepower. And the exact same thing goes if you have 6 guys. If you have 6 guys, you can all move into the patrol base together and just occupy it in force. Once you're all there and you're set and you have good 360-degree security, you're going to stop, look, listen, and smell for about 10 to 15 minutes to make sure that you haven't been followed, to make sure that the area is secured. Take a good look around. Again, using those same 5 criteria as earlier to make sure that this is a good patrol base to establish. But let's swing back to the military side and talk about how doctrinally the military occupies a patrol base. Once the leader's recon has returned that this is a good patrol base, we're going to start moving the rest of the element in. So there's a couple of ways you can do it, usually radio communications, or you can send a runner who comes back down to the OP, lets them know, hey, we're staying here, comes back to patrol, and either grabs, if you have the time and you're trying to be stealthy, 1 squad at a time, or if you're trying to get things done, you grab the entire patrol. They will move up, past the OP, and into the patrol base. And the way they'll do it is usually very organized, and it's in a clockwise fashion where they'll come into the patrol base moving clockwise or counterclockwise, drop off 1st squad here, drop off 2nd squad here, drop off 3rd squad here, and then the leadership and the RTO and the medic will stay in the middle and establish the patrol base headquarters. Once the patrol has entered and occupied the patrol base, we're not quite done getting set up yet. As we briefly talked about earlier, distribution of firepower, not going to beat you over the head with that. The machine guns, the heaviest, highest casualty producing weapons are going to be in the areas where they can have the most effect. And then the firepower is going to be distributed throughout the rest with grenadiers, et cetera, et cetera. After firepower is established and distributed correctly, the patrol is going to send out what's called RNS teams, which are your recon and security teams, or recon and surveillance teams, depending on how you want to do it. What they're going to do is make a quick patrol outside of the patrol base and assess it from the outside. What they're looking for and taking note of are those things like those obstacles that we mentioned earlier, making a good assessment of the cover and concealment of the patrol base, making sure no one's sticking out. Just a quick look from the outside. With a 3 to 6 man patrol, you may or may not have the ability to do this. If you have the freedom to do it and if you feel your threat assessment is low enough that you can take a quick walk around the outside, it's not a bad idea. So as the RNS team is making their rounds about, take note of 2 things real quick. One, they're going to be exiting through the 6 o'clock here, which we're going to get back to in a minute. But each squad leader is taking a view on the RNS team. The RNS team is usually made up of the squad leaders, and they're each assessing their own squad's sector. That way they can go back to their men and describe to them, hey, there's a blind spot here. Hey, there's a defilade right here. Someone could get down in that defilade and come up, so just be aware of that, etc. Now, if you're doing this as a 3 to 6 man element and you're trying to do some RNS and you feel like that's applicable, you could have each guy it's going to be their main sector of fire do like a 50, 25 meter quick run out to see what's going on. But again, they're entering and exiting through here, which is going to be our entry control point. And this is the next big thing I wanted to touch on because this absolutely applies to 3-man and 6-man elements. One established entry control point is, it may seem silly, it may seem like, well, why does it matter? What an entry control point does is it funnels everyone who is supposed to be coming into the patrol base into one location so that everyone knows where friendlies are supposed to be approaching from. If someone is approaching from a different direction, you already know the likelihood that they're not at least a part of your group is pretty high. So this is a crucial element that falls down to, I don't care if it's just you and a buddy, you need to know, hey, this is where I'm entering and exiting the patrol base from to avoid friendly fire, also to keep good accountability of your people. The entry control point should always be manned or be at a guard position that someone's at. That way we're keeping track of people exiting and leaving. Even with 6 dudes, if someone is leaving the patrol base for any reason, it is once you're sleep deprived, it is very easy to lose track of somebody, especially if they're not people that you're super familiar with. So again, entry control points, just want to hammer that down, it's crucial. Let's talk about water for 30 guys. Whether in the military or not, this system actually wasn't taken from the military. This is something that we were doing down at Darcy, and this is a system that the water team that I was on used to get water clean for 30 guys over the course of an evening. The 3 C's that I talked about, and have been hammering ever since we started talking about water, with consistency, control, and clarity with your labeling, those are even more important when you have 30 guys, because now instead of getting 1 guy sick or getting 2 guys sick, you could be getting 30 guys sick, and that is a huge problem. So those need to be, the seriousness of this all ratchets up when you're dealing with more people. But because you have more people, you probably have more resources, and you probably have something like a water team who's going to collect the water from the patrol base, bringing it back, and then you probably have a lot of extra resources. So with an example like this, when you have a big patrol base, because you have 30 guys, you have some space to spread out and the additional resources. So you start with your dirty water over here, separated off by itself, clearly labeled dirty water. Moving it into, let's say, a gravity bucket system that's going to do a bit of extra pre-filtering. If you were not able to pre-filter the water at the source, this is a good chance to get some additional filtration done before you start gumming up your gravity bags with all that dirt and sediment. So going from buckets into pre-filtered jerry can, and then from a pre-filtered jerry can into the gravity bag. When you're doing this volume of water, something that becomes extremely important when you're using gravity bags is going to be hot swapping out your filters for fresh ones, and then back flushing your other filters. We actually had a little extra station down here on the side that was solely for back flushing filters. So getting the syringe kits from Canaan Provisions, or getting your syringe from anywhere, making sure that you have a way to back flush your filters and refresh them allows you to continue water production when those filters get clogged up. Because I promise you, even with great pre-filtering, they will eventually get clogged up if you're using pretty dirty water to begin with. After gravity bags, moving the water back into your clean buckets here, and then in the clean containers is where we would do our H2Go or our iodine tabs, and make sure that the water was getting purified after being filtered. I've heard it, I've had these arguments on the internet, the school of thought where people are like, oh, I just filter my water and that's fine. That's great when you're backpacking in the mountains and you're getting water out of a fresh spring. But when you're producing water for a group of fighting men or your family or your friends, take that extra step to make sure that you're purifying your water after filtering it. I don't know why it's negotiable, but it's really not one. So always purify. The next most important thing becomes labeling correctly. We talked about this, the third C, clarity and labeling. This becomes way more important when you're dealing with 30 plus people. You may be the water boss or on the water team, and you may know which containers are clean and which ones are dirty, but maybe it's your turn to sleep and Joe Schmo walks in and grabs the wrong bucket, fills up his Nalgene, and now Joe Schmo is dead of dysentery because you didn't properly label your containers. So when you label your containers, this isn't a full water class, but just to give you the quick rundown of it, is you want 4 pieces of information on that label: the time that you treated the water, the time that the water will be ready, the method that you used to clean it, and who treated it, either your initials or your name, etc. This is done so that, like, if someone has a question, they know who to come ask. So yeah, make sure that your labeling is on point, because maintaining control of this whole process becomes a critical step to keep people from getting sick.
All right, we're gonna give Pliskin a chance to, drink some water, and I don't know, maybe put in an eye drop. But let's talk about maintenance and food. A golden rule to kind of think about and keep in the back of your head is, of all the things that we have in play in a patrol base, so we have guys on MGs, we have radio operators, we have dudes needing to sleep, dudes needing to eat. You never want to have one category down more than 30% at a time. So if there's a machine gun on each position, clean one at a time. If you have an entire squad that needs to eat, only send out a couple of them to eat and then come back and swap out. 3 RTOs, only one of them is refreshing his battery at a time. 30 sets of nods, that's a lot of money. Only 10 of them down at a time while you're swapping out new batteries. So just that 30% rule keeps you pretty much always at full capability, or at least close to full capability, without sacrificing too much. As with everything else, the more people you get, the more effective you are at doing all these things. The same is true whenever it comes to sleep. If you have a 30 guy or a 30-man patrol base, well, 15 dudes could be getting 4 hours of rest at a time, and then they just do a swap out. That's much more achievable than if you only have 3 to 6 dudes. Granted, the organization of it all is paramount because it can be an even greater mess if you don't have that leadership and organization. The good thing about having just a couple of guys, 3 guys to 6 guys, is it's a little bit cleaner, it's a little bit easier to manage. And it kind of reminds me of the whole principle of what you do with a little, you will do with a lot. If you are an unorganized group of 3 dudes, and if you're just blowing past all of these things that we're telling you guys, like as soon as you become a part of something bigger, or as soon as you're potentially having to lead something bigger, all those little things that you didn't practice, all those little like sleep habits, the scheduling, delegating appropriately, having one person in charge and delegating, leadership towards other smaller teams. If you don't practice that ever and you expect to be able to lead a 30-man resistance of whatever in some crazy scenario that you're coming up with, it's not going to go the way that you think. You are going to defeat yourself out of poor planning, poor preparation, and poor organization. With 30 guys, you could even get away with 20 sleeping at a time and 10 pulling security. You can get away with a lot more, provided you have that organization and everyone's on the same page. One really good thing to remember though is that with a larger group like this, you're not just going to have one leader, you're gonna have multiple leaders, and it's gonna be a good thing to not let all of those leaders sleep at the same time. You're first in charge, you're second in charge, your squad leaders, they don't need to all be taking a nap while all of the normies like us pull security. You should have some sort of leadership awake at all times. And with this many guys and with this many leaders, that shouldn't be a problem. Now, just like Jonathan mentioned when we were talking about doing this for 3 and 6 guys, we are still gonna have a stand to order even with a large group. It doesn't matter if guys are in the middle of their sleep rotation or not. Whenever it comes twilight, the sun is going down, or dawn, the sun is coming up, everyone wakes up and everyone gets in their position for at least an hour. Typically it's about an hour, and you are observing, you're listening, you are taking in the sights, you are making sure that everything is good, because this is the most opportune time for someone to come up on you or try and sneak up on you. So I will say you will learn a lot of this stuff if you go to MilSim West very often. Your very first MilSim West experience, you will be in a patrol base. And if you do things wrong, or if you have a crappy leader, or just someone on security fails to do their job, you are going to get shot in your sleep. And if it was me, I'd shoot you in the neck so that you always remember it and you're never going to do it again. So just, if you want practice doing this kind of stuff, go to a MilSim West and you can experience the pain of doing things poorly yourself. Now, whenever it comes time to leave the PB and to continue on with your patrol or your mission, or to go home, whatever it may be, the exit strategy is the same for 30 guys as it was for 3. You have a clear rendezvous point established. Everyone is on the same page. All the squad leaders know it, and all their men know where they are going to next. And you will leave out of your ECP. Now, one thing to note, because this is a pet peeve of mine no matter where I go, is that to take it back to the scouting days, leave no trace, right? As an individual in this grand plan, or maybe it's just a small group of dudes, you are responsible for every piece of trash you leave on the ground. You're responsible for the woodland around you. If you're cutting down trees, or if you're, in some way manipulating the environment, it is on you as an individual to make it as natural looking as possible, to put, cut tree limbs, stick them down to the ground, cover them up with leaves, pick up all of your trash. There's nothing more unnerving than having to pick up someone else's trash, and if you don't do it yourself, and if when it's pointed out, you don't, claim it and then go fix your mistake, someone else, usually a squad leader or something like that, is gonna have to do it for you. And that's time that they could be better spending on something else. Quite frankly, if you don't pick up after yourself, I think you're a piece of crap. I can't tell you how many, I'll tell you a good way to weed people out like this. And I'm not trying to be harsh, I'm not trying to be critical, but if you spend time in an Airbnb with a bunch of buddies, when it's time to leave, and being that you paid the bill, or you put the deposit down, you go around to all the rooms and you check to make sure everything's good. And there's always one guy that leaves his room like a pigsty, right? That's the kind of person that is a liability in a situation like this. I don't mean to put it harshly, but that's also a great teaching opportunity. If you run into something like that, people don't keep their stuff squared away, especially even in their own home, let alone a guest house. Like, It's a major problem. And I'm not trying to sound cliche, you know, the whole term like, hey, make your bed first thing in the morning. I don't always do that, but like being a clean individual, being responsible for your space, it's a big deal, and it absolutely translates to stuff like this.
Well, guys, to wrap this up, we've been sitting here for about 25 minutes talking about things that won't actually make it on the cut of this YouTube channel because, you know, we're a bunch of guys in the woods having a good time and we're just laughing around joking about the things that we can't actually say. But to wrap this all up, you could chase this as far as you want. You can take a lot of military doctrine from pick your favorite category and apply it to your daily life. Just as an example, the idea of having a secure and established space for you, your friends, and your family, man, do some site selection and look before you do a family road trip. What are the roads that I'm going to be traveling? What are the places that I'm going to be traveling to or through? Man, maybe even what is the threat level in that area, if you will? Or if you're staying at an Airbnb, dude, take the time to go check all the doors and windows. Don't just assume that they're locked. There's a lot of some of those pre-flight checklists that you may do, or once you actually get there, ensuring that you know where the closest hospital is or where the rendezvous points may be for you or your family are very simple, common sense things, but common sense is only common after it's been explained and relayed to friends or your children, for example. So if you take the time to learn some of those things and you pass those things on to your kids, they are going to be far better prepared than a lot of people that are being raised these days. Fisher, what do you got?
I have the talking stick. So the two things I think I'd want to make sure to hit on before we go here is we talked a lot about schedules and about how little sleep you're getting. And it really comes down to once you start doing this stuff and getting out and training, you find out how important all the little efficiencies are when it comes to how your gear is set up, what you're bringing with you. So the only way to really do that, you can only learn so much watching people on YouTube talk about it, getting out there yourself, and even if it's just you and one friend, and you're gonna go tactically camp for a night, and try to pull guard shifts and see what works and see what doesn't, because I promise you the first couple times you get out there, you're gonna learn a ton. And the second thing is people. Finding people is probably the hardest thing that any of us do. But as you can see, just going from 3 guys to 6 guys and how luxurious it seems when you have 30 guys, finding people is incredibly important, and that's something that you need to be doing now. So, you know, go to church. That's a great place to find people. Go shoot competitions. It's another great place to find people. Find people who are like-minded. Open that conversation. Don't just, you know, sit at home all day.
Also, you can find people by filtering your server results on Hell Let Loose to, well, for us, US East. So we know, you know, whoever we meet on there that's a legit dude is within driving distance.
It's a great way to figure it out.
But in all seriousness, I will say this. I forgot what it was. I will say that, you know, if you watch the entirety of this video, obviously there's a lot in here that you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I'm never going to use that. And you're probably right. But the truth of the matter is, and we've said this on the channel many times, is that most everything that we talk about on here is probably not going to be used. Your Glock that you carry every single day is probably never going to be used. That being said, I don't think that you should have to join a standing military in order to learn this stuff. And by learning it yourself, you give yourself a little bit of extra security, a little bit of extra knowledge, but you're also giving yourself the knowledge that you can pass down to your kids, to your grandkids, and you're kind of keeping that spirit of American independence alive by knowing it, internalizing it, and passing it on. It is up to you, not a school, not an institution, not the military, to teach the next generation this kind of stuff. So, with that being said, get out there. Next time you go camping, you know, in all the free time that you have after you set up your camp, maybe take one of the things that we talked about today, like sending out an SNR team or creating an entry control point for your camp, for your family. Take one thing and start to implement that, and I think you're actually going to find it pretty useful. With that being said, Josh is getting ready to be another dad.
Maybe in hours.
Same wife, just another kid.
Thanks. Thanks.
Within an hour, so we're gonna wrap this up. I'll give you some dad advice. Jonathan, this one will hit really home for you since you don't have any kids yet.
Yeah.
Wear iPro in the field. Hey, Otacon, you know, I was just thinking about this. If it starts raining, that cardboard box is probably not gonna hold up. Just letting you know, man. All right, peace.